As he speaks thus, tormented by the affliction of the world, which is like a forest on fire, and seeking his protection, the saint eyes him with a glance, softened with pity, and spontaneously bids him give up all fear. To him who has sought his protection, thirsting for liberation, who duly obeys the injunctions of the Scriptures, who is of a serene mind and endowed with calmness, to such a one the sage proceeds to inculcate the truth out of sheer grace. Fear not, O learned one, there is no death for thee. There is a means of crossing this sea of relative existence. That very way by which sages have gone beyond it, I shall inculcate to thee. There is a sovereign means which puts an end to the fear of relative existence. Through that thou wilt cross the sea of samsara and attain the supreme bliss. Reasoning on the meaning of the Vedanta leads to efficient knowledge, which is immediately followed by the total annihilation of the misery born of relative existence. Faith, Shraddha, devotion, and the yoga of meditation, these are mentioned by the Shruti as the immediate factors of liberation in the case of a seeker. Whoever abides in these gets liberation from the bondage of the body, which is the conjuring of ignorance. It is verily through the touch of ignorance that thou, who art the Supreme Self, findest thyself under the bondage of the non-self, whence alone proceeds the round of births and deaths. The fire of knowledge, kindled by the discrimination between these two, burns up the effects of ignorance together with their root. Condescend to listen, O Master, to the question I am putting to thee. I shall be gratified to hear a reply to the same from thy lips. What is bondage, forsooth? How has it come upon the self? How does it continue to exist? How is one freed from it? What is this non-self? And who is the Supreme Self? And how can one discriminate between them? Do tell me about all these. The Guru replied, Blessed art thou. Thou hast achieved thy life's end and hast sanctified thy family, that thou wishest to attain Brahmanhood by getting free from the bondage of ignorance. A father has got his sons and others to free him from his debts, but he has got none but himself to remove his bondage. Trouble such as that caused by a load on the head can be removed by others, but none but one's own self can put a stop to the pain which is caused by hunger and the like. The patient who takes the proper diet and medicine is alone seen to recover completely, not through work done by others. The true nature of things is to be known personally, through the eye of clear illumination, and not through a sage. What the moon exactly is to be known with one's own eyes. Can others make him know it? Who but one's own self can get rid of the bondage caused by the fetters of ignorance, desire, action, and the like, even in 100 crore of cycles? Neither by yoga, nor by sankhya, nor by work, nor by learning, but by the realization of one's identity with Brahman is liberation possible, and by no other means. The beauty of a guitar's form and the skill of playing on its chords serve merely to please a few persons. They do not suffice to confer sovereignty. Loud speech consisting of a shower of words, the skill in expounding the Scriptures, and likewise erudition, these merely bring on a little personal enjoyment to the scholar, but are no good for liberation. The study of the Scriptures is useless so long as the highest truth is unknown, and it is equally useless when the highest truth has already been known. The Scriptures, consisting of many words, are a dense forest which merely causes the mind to ramble. Hence men of wisdom should earnestly set about knowing the true nature of the self. For one who has been bitten by the serpent of ignorance, the only remedy is the knowledge of Brahman. Of what avail are the Vedas and other scriptures, mantras and medicines to such a one? A disease does not leave off if one simply utter the name of the medicine without taking it. Similarly, without direct realization, one cannot be liberated by the mere utterance of the word Brahman. Without causing the objective universe to vanish, and without knowing the truth of the self, How is one to achieve liberation by the mere utterance of the word Brahman? It would result merely in an effort of speech. Without killing one's enemies and possessing oneself of the splendor of the entire surrounding region, one cannot claim to be an emperor by merely saying, "I am an emperor." As a treasure hidden underground requires for its extraction competent instruction, excavation, the removal of stones and other such things lying above it, and finally grasping, but never comes out by being merely called out by name, so the transparent truth of the self, which is hidden by Maya and its effects, is to be attained through the instructions of a knower of Brahman, followed by reflection, meditation and so forth, but not through perverted arguments. Therefore the wise should, as in the case of disease and the like, personally strive by all means in their power to be free from the bondage of repeated births and deaths. The question that thou hast asked today is excellent, approved by those versed in the scriptures, aphoristic, pregnant with meaning, and fit to be known by the seekers after liberation. Listen attentively, O learned one, to what I am going to say. By listening to it, thou shalt be instantly free from the bondage of samsara. The first step to liberation is the extreme aversion to all perishable things. Then follow calmness, self-control, forbearance, and the utter relinquishment of all work enjoined in the scriptures. Then comes hearing, reflection on that, and long, constant, and unbroken meditation on the truth for the Muni. After that, the learned seeker attains the supreme nirvikalp state and realizes the bliss of nirvana even in this life. Now I am going to tell thee fully about what thou oughtst to know, the discrimination between the self and the non-self. Listen to it and decide about it in thy mind. Composed of the 7 ingredients, viz. Marrow, bones, fat, flesh, blood, skin and cuticle, and consisting of the following limbs and their parts: legs, thighs, the chest, arms, back and the head. This body, reputed to be the abode of the delusion of I and mine, is designated by sages as the gross body. The sky, air, fire, water and earth are subtle elements. They, being united with parts of one another and becoming gross, form the gross body, and their subtle essences form sense objects, the group of 5, such as sound, which conduce to the happiness of the experiencer, the individual soul. Those fools who are tied to these sense objects by the stout cord of attachment, so very difficult to snap, come and depart, up and down, carried away by the powerful emissary of their past action. The deer, the elephant, the moth, the fish, and the black bee, these 5 have died, being tied to one or the other of the 5 senses, with sound, etc., through their own attachment. What then is in store for man who is attached to all these 5? Sense objects are even more virulent in their evil effects than the poison of the cobra. Poison kills one who takes it, but those others kill one who even looks at them through the eyes. He who is free from the terrible snare of the hankering after sense objects, so very difficult to get rid of, is alone fit for liberation and none else, even though he be versed in all the 6 Shastras. The shark of hankering catches by the throat those seekers after liberation who have got only an apparent dispassion, vairagya, and are trying to cross the ocean of samsara, relative existence, and violently snatching them away, drowns them halfway. He who has killed the shark known as sense objects with the sword of mature dispassion crosses the ocean of samsara free from all obstacles.